I need the motion designer community to be aware of this, is that the artists at these major animation studios are blown away by your work because of the multifaceted nature of what you can do.
Hey everybody, EJ here, and welcome to the School of Motion podcast. Today, we're going to be diving deep into the world of 3D with Michael Tanzillo from Adobe Substance 3D team. Michael's journey is seriously inspiring, from darkroom photography to lighting iconic animated films like Ice Age and Rio, and now leading a global team at Adobe. We're going to chat about his unique perspective on the 3D industry, how it's evolving, and where motion designers fit into all of this. We'll even talk a little bit about all the exciting stuff happening at Adobe. All right, let's dive in. All right, Michael, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. Like I've been following you for so many years, and like I had no idea that the journey that you've been on to where you're at now. So before I bury the lead, how about we get a little bit of your background, because your journey to where you are today at working at Adobe is pretty crazy, and I think like our listeners would get a lot out of it.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me, EJ. I've taken a little bit of a routed path of getting here. So I started off in photography. Like that was like my first go around in a creative medium. I did that because the first time I did it, I was in high school. I took a photography class because that was the only class you could go off campus for. And I just wanted to leave as frequently as possible. But I got in there, and the darkroom process of like putting a piece of shining light on a piece of paper and then putting that piece of paper in a liquid, and then an image just emerges out of it like some Harry Potter magic. That absolutely got me. I've never had that kind of reaction to something before. And it was like, no, this is what I want to do. And it got me into a creative path. I was in Central Ohio at the time. So when you do that, you go to Ohio State. That's kind of like this magnetic thing that brings everybody in. So I went to Ohio State. I went into the art program with the idea that I would do photography. And I did that for a little while. And one of the things that was starting emerging from the early 2000s was just the idea of doing digital art. You know, digital cameras were coming out. Photoshop was becoming more of a thing. At the time, I was like, that's ridiculous. Adobe's ridiculous. I just want to develop in the darkroom. I will never, ever touch that product. That's kind of my thing. But it turned out that the thing that you love to do when you're 16 years old is not necessarily the thing that you're best at professionally. So after graduating, I tried to do some professional photography. I struggled at it mightily, and I did not enjoy it. And so I just went back to bartending. So I was bartending for a bit, and I was working a little bit at an art gallery, and somebody showed up at the art gallery with these renders of the gallery space with their artwork hanging in the gallery. And it convinced everyone like, oh, this is a show we want to do. I didn't think the artwork was that particularly good, but they were able to communicate so well with this 3D medium that I was like, okay, I'm into this. So I got the Cinema 4D at the time. This was early 2000s. It's very different than Cinema 4D today. And I started playing around with it. I had taken a robotics class in school. And so as I was doing these 3D renderings, I had this old robotics professor who was like, hey, you're starting to play around with 3D. I want to make this robotics book where every image in it is a 3D render. And we're talking about like the little motors and resistors and all these things. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I could just photograph all this stuff, right? And he's like, no, it's going to be future-y and it's going to be awesome. Don't worry about it. So I spent like 9 months. I got paid $500 total for the project. I do not recommend doing that, but I spent 9 months like modeling, lighting, rendering day after day after day of all these just like components over and over and over again. And I just fell in love with the process of creating visuals in 3D. I didn't know what I was going to do with that until Finding Nemo came out on DVD, and I watched it, and I, obviously love the film, but I watched this behind the scenes of these artists going scuba diving off the coast of Australia, and they were defining the look of the film visually, like setting the mood based on the way that the ocean looked. When you're in open ocean, it's bluer, it's lighter, it's happier. The closer they get to Sydney, it gets darker, And the idea of telling story beats in a look was, that was like kind of my aha moment for 3D, the same way that developing photographs was from the photograph thing. I didn't know if lighting was a job. I didn't know that was a job that you could do. And so it really connected with me. So I started applying, way underqualified for the jobs. Decided that I wanted to go back to school, put together a portfolio, applied. I got into the Savannah College of Art and Design to get into their visual effects program. And I studied there I had to take a bunch of prerequisites because again, I didn't know Maya. I didn't know any of the stuff that I had to know. Got on that path a little bit, had some incredible professors and people that I worked with, rolled that into a job at an animation studio called Blue Sky Studios. So this was, they've done The Ice Ages. At that time, they've done Horton Hears a Who. And I got hired as a render wrangler, essentially. The job title was lighting technical assistant, but the job was basically to manage the renders on the render farms. Because again, you've got like these bank of computers and you've got to render out all these frames. And my jobs were just to keep the air conditioning running and keep the lights on and just make sure that things were going okay. And if anything was like super complex with a render, I would help fix it. I mean, this was at a time when the renders were, 20, 30 hours a frame kind of a thing for these movies. So it was pretty intense. So I did that for a little while on that film. But at that time, I just sat in the back of the dailies, the reviews of the lighting frames. And just like, I could not have been more excited. I was every day, I don't think I blinked like the first month I was there. I was just so into it, just like watching the work that was being put up on the screen that I was like, looks so good. And then seeing these critiques and these notes given to it, and like, oh my gosh, that's right. That would make it better. And just watching the process, I loved it. So I was able to convince somebody, I forget how I did this, but I was able to convince them to kind of, because they were so backed up on shots that I took a couple of them. And I ended up lighting like a dozen shots for Ice Age 3. And that was like my first take in it. And then when the next film we worked on, Rio, came around, I was training and grinding and working over, nights and weekends and stuff to build up enough work to have them promote me to a junior lighting artist. So I kind of made my way up as a lighting artist on animated films for 10, 12 years. So I made my way up to senior artist. I led some projects and kind of thing. And then by the end of Blue Sky, we were looking to transition to a new pipeline. We'd done all this proprietary stuff. We were going to move over to new stuff. By the way, during that process, I was doing some recruiting trips for other lighting jobs, and me and a coworker, a woman named Jasmine Katatakarn, were looking for lighting artists at colleges and universities and noticing that the things that people were learning in school were not the things that we knew would make you successful. A lot of the aesthetic stuff, like I'd go somewhere and someone would show me something and aesthetically it just wasn't there. The color scheme was, the composition wasn't there. The lighting balance was like, nothing was really working. And then we talked to them and they would say things like, oh, I'm going to learn Mental Ray. I'm going to learn V-Ray. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's like, no, it's not software. Like your software is fine. You can make this. It's just like artistically, you're not there yet. So Jasmine and I decided to start a online school called the Academy of Animated Art. At the time, it was called TDU. It was a long story, but it became the Academy of Animated Art. And we were teaching people how to light for film and doing all the artistic stuff. And how do you evaluate something? How do you light for mood? How do you create visual shaping? How do you do all of this stuff that you don't learn in school? We did that for like 10 years. So, and by the way, when the company Blue Sky was owned by 20th Century Fox, also owned later by Disney when Disney bought it. So those types of companies don't really like it when you do outside things outside of your day-to-day job. So we had to keep it like, we got it approved early. And then I held on to that email for dear life as we quietly did the side hustle, that drill. And like so we did that for a while. And then as the studio was starting to change, it came up. They were like, hey, Mike, you've been teaching for a long time. You show people new workflows and new things. Would you kind of help the studio with that? And so the side hustle led into, I took over and created a training department at Blue Sky Studios. I was the head of training there in my last couple of years and was helping the studio transition to a new pipeline when Disney made the decision to close the studio down. So I was, obviously devastated by that. It's the place I'd known, all these people that I loved and all that. And I was feeling a little bit lost. And I didn't know, because when you do this thing, when you're in film, in my head, 3D meant film, video games, visual effects. That's what, as a 3D artist, that's what you're limited to. And I felt kind of stuck coming out. And I was just kind of going to those companies looking for jobs. And I wasn't really finding anything that worked. And I talked to a buddy of mine, a guy named Alan Hunt, who co-founded a website called The Rookies. And I was going to, with the mindset of I'm teaching these online classes, I'm still running this business. Maybe I can make that my full-time thing. Let me talk to Alan. And Alan kept saying like, yeah, let's run a contest. We'll run a contest together. We'll get Adobe to sponsor it. And I was like, cool. Why would Adobe sponsor 3D? Like they're Photoshop and Illustrator and Lightroom. Like why in After Effects? Like why would they care? And he's like, no, they bought Substance. And I was like, what? And Substance to me was and we can talk about it, but it's a material application process. It kind of was groundbreaking from the entertainment side. And I was like, why would Adobe care about buying Substance, this French company who's awesome? And like, I love them, but I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. I guess they bought Substance. Cool. And he talked me through kind of the stuff that he did at the job and like how he was able to get a sponsorship thing. And I was like, okay, cool. Hung up the phone and went to bed that night. And the next morning I just sent him an email like, hey man, like what you're doing sounds really interesting. Is there any openings there? He said, actually, we have this demo artist role where I would just show the software off to clients. And I was like, dude, this is my transition job. This is the one where I'm going to talk to gaming studios and visual effects houses and animation companies. I'll make some connections. And this is a 6-month gig and it'll roll me into my next job in entertainment. And I got the job and I started and I realized I was talking to like no gaming companies, no animation houses. It was all big products and big brands and all these kind of things. Fashion designers, industrial designers. And I was like, I got to talk to NASA. I was like, what is happening? Like, why? And I didn't fully have an appreciation of it. And then in those 6 months, my eyes were kind of opened and I was realizing how big 3D was getting into other industries and these things that I just been so tunnel vision for so long that I had no idea. And they're using 3D in different ways than I've been anticipating. And after that 6 months, I had the opportunity to take the job full time. So I jumped on that. And then that led into me leading the team. So now my job is I'm the head of the 3D technical artists for the Substance team at Adobe. So I run a global team of artists and I just got this team running around the world, showing off Substance at both in like business meetings, but occasionally at conferences and just some of the best, most amazing artists and people that I know I get to work with every day. So it's a dream come true job. But at the same time, like I know that there's lots of people who are struggling currently in the entertainment and film industry, with layoffs and gaming's the same way. It's just brutal out there. So I really wanted to make sure that everyone with these incredible skill sets in 3D knows about all these opportunities that are out there. So I started a newsletter called The 3D Artist. I've gotten worse at naming things over the years. So it's just The 3D Artist.
That's good SEO. Hey.
Yeah. And then that rolled into a online community. So I do have an online community of people who hang out and from all different factions of the 3D world. And then I read a newsletter about it. So that was long winded, but that kind of, when you get in your mid 40s, the story gets longer. So,
right.
So that's kind of how that ends up.
No, not like I said, I've been following you for a while. I think I first learned about you through the Academy of lighting art and all that. And I just love the newsletters and all the insights. Cause at that time I was actually trying to learn lighting myself to even like teach it in our like intro to cinema 4D classes. And I feel like lighting is one of those skills where it's like, we take advantage, especially 2D artists. Like you never have to worry about how something's lit in After Effects or Photoshop or anything like that. So I always found that was one of the biggest weak points for artists. So that's how I found your guys' site. And I'm going to leave links for everything because what Michael's doing, even with the 3D artist community, I love your newsletters every week. They're great. They also have like job postings. And one of the things that I think you've really shined a light on, even for me, and I've been in the motion designy part of 3D for a while, is just how many different companies that you wouldn't think would need a 3D artist actually have a need for a 3D artist. And I feel like it's just becoming more and more. And so what I'd want to ask you is like that there was a lot of little nuggets in your journey that I think were important to call out. Number one, that like you kind of put yourself out there, you started sharing your knowledge, you started making connections, and you also shot your shot. You reached out to someone to ask like if there was something available. And I think that's the imposter syndrome. I talk to artists all the time and it's always this thing where it's like, I'm not getting any jobs or whatever. And I look at their reel or I look at their portfolio and it's like, you haven't updated your reel since 2020. Like your social media is like nowhere. You haven't posted on LinkedIn in years. It's like, no wonder you don't have anything out. So I think it's important for people to kind of latch on like what you did putting yourself out there. And I wonder, did you experience like imposter syndrome much when cause I mean that you would have had to have dealt with it the entire time. Like you were at Blue Sky, not as a lighter, but you kind of got past it, you know?
I mean, imposter syndrome affects everybody. I mean, it was every day, all the time in the creative journey. It was just like, that constant feeling that you're going to get found out because everybody else is so talented around you. And you're just like trying to like, oh, I fooled them for another film. Here we go. Let me do this again. And it's a very daunting thing to put yourself out there creatively. It's one of those. Now, one of the things I should say too, is that at some of these big studios, like if you work for a Disney or an Epic or something, like it's difficult to get your work out there because you can't share what you're working on, right? Like it's all behind NDAs and what you're doing. And so you're only able to do it after it's released. So, but I think so much of it is it's so easy to get in your loop of what you do every day, the day in and day out of my job and just kind of focusing on my job that you don't take a breath and realizing that connecting with the outer community and connecting with the people around you and getting on your preferred choice of social media or whatever, just to connect with the larger community is important. It's as important as your job is. Not, and I'm not even like talking about like it's valuable to, cause then you can make these connections that can help you with your next thing. Like all that's cool. And that happens, but it's just so important to think outside of your current situation and get some perspective on the larger scope of things. And it's not something that's, natural to anybody. Like you have to put yourself out there for the most part. Like people will talk to me like, oh, I seem very outgoing, but like, no, I had to work at this. Like talking in front of a camera. It's only because I taught for 10 years in front of a camera that I feel somewhat comfortable standing in my home office by myself, talking at a screen. You know what I mean? Like you have to do it. You have to build the muscle memory for it. And the same thing with networking, the same thing with reaching out, because that imposter syndrome is going to be there, and you just have to keep fighting your way through it. I like to say this too, like for any of us who do anything creative, for the most part, many of us had to disappoint somebody at some point in our journey to get to where we are. We all had like people saying, maybe not, maybe you shouldn't do art. Maybe you should just study business. And that's how you do a thing. And it's like, no, we had to be bullheaded at some point to get through that, to get through whether it was an actual person or whether it was like a general societal thing of like, you're just going to be a poor artist. Like you already have it within you to be strong and to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. So just remind yourself of that and keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things where it's like, I feel probably many motion designers feel like the world you come from is this completely separate world of like Pixar. It's always one thing where it's like, it's hard. One of the things that I hear time and time again is motion designers or anyone doing like 3D motion design or anything like that, trying to explain what they do to their parents or just strangers or friends or whatever that aren't in the business. And how I usually do it is like, oh, do you know Pixar? And they're like, oh yeah, I know Pixar. I was like, well, I can do something like that, but I'm not as good as Pixar, but I can do something similar to that. But I that's kind of why I wanted to get you on here, because you have this like unique insight of like being from that world where like, I know a lot of us probably in motion design and stuff look at Pixar and Blue Sky and is like, man, that would be amazing to work in those areas. But we're the wearers of many hats. So, you've been at Adobe for a few years now. Is there any like kind of things that kind of like, cause you're this outsider's perspective getting into the motion design world. Is there anything that like kind of surprised you or shocked you, like coming into a company like Adobe and just seeing like how like the 3D motion design world kind of functions versus how you were used to functioning as this, like, I lit a thing. I just did lights for a shot.
Yep. No, it's so you get used to it in 3D production. There's literally hundreds of people that work on what you're working on. So the idea that I talk about my shots or my work or my this or my that is a gross misconception of to what has happened. There's usually 10 to 15 to 20 different people have worked on the shot. So like any shot from any given film, it's like there's the concepting that goes into it. There's a story that's written. Then it's like the modeling that's done by another person, the layout, which is just kind of general blocking of the camera and the motion stuff, is done by somebody. And then there's somebody who animates it. There's somebody who does the skin. There's somebody who does the materials. There's somebody else who does the fur and the cloth simulation. And like, it's an assembly line approach. And yes, you are very good at your one thing. Like when I got a shot, the materials were already there. It was already animated. The dialogue was already there. The voices were already recorded. Like everything was already done. I had to do my part of it. And I'm very good at that. And I was able to do that. But you're very aware of the fact that you were just a cog in the process. So it's like, as I'm lighting something, I'm like, oh, you know what? The material on this character's hat is too dark. Like I can't just tweak it. I have to make a ticket. I send it back to another person who then works on it. And then they send it back. It's like, it's a whole thing. But what my experience has been is just, and I need the motion designer community to be aware of this, is that the artists at the artists at these major animation studios are blown away by your work because of the multifaceted nature of what you can do. I think that what you're able to accomplish, because what motion graphics artists have to deal with is the color theory, the motion, the camera movement, like every part of it is on your shoulders, and you have to wear so many hats to make something incredible. And it's so fascinating to watch. Also, you will have to communicate actual information sometimes. Like you actually have to deliver, it's like the words of something. And by the way, that the thing you said about working at Pixar, kind of like that, same for me. Like when I was talking to family members, or I'd be on a date or something, like, oh, what do you do for work? Well, I'm a lighting artist at Blue Sky Studios. It's like, so like an animator at Pixar? Like, yeah, sure. I'm an animator. Yeah. Same. Yeah. So it's like, I used to joke that I was going to just, make a t-shirt that says that I'm a lighter at Blue Sky and just have it crossed out. And then just says I'm an animator at Pixar. But just know from the 3D community to the motion graphics side, it's like the work that you all are doing and that you have to do at the pace that you're doing. Also, I should say this, we work on films for years. Like it is a long process. Like just the animation. They're meant to deliver a couple seconds of animation per week. Like that's their quota. As a lighting artist, I'm meant to light 3 to 4 shots a week and get those approved. So it is a slow, drumbeat, steady process over a long time. And I know the motion graphics community, it's like, nope, you got 2 weeks for the whole thing. Like get it done, man. And there's, I mean, some of the work that I see out there, like, just the quality that I've seen out of the motion graphics community is insane. And, especially like, I love seeing the way that show intros have gotten like elevated over the years. It was like the Game of Thrones started it. And now it's like the Severance opening is a whole thing. Like all these shows, just like, I think that is a real highlight to the value of the motion graphics. And just watching like the way that these worlds are coming together. Like I said, the quality of the work that you see out of the motion graphics community is on par with a lot of the other stuff that we're seeing. And I should say this too. So if the film 3D side, entertainment side of the world was going so hard at photorealism for so long early in the process, and then like, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there's been a pivot away from that and more into a stylized look. And we see it now. There's, between the Spider-Verse movies, Peanuts was one of ours. And I got the crash course in that, because when we said we were doing the Peanuts movie, I was like, oh man, I'm about to be out of a job. Like it's a comic book. There's not much lighting there. And then, but then that ended up being like one of the hardest films that I ever worked on, because it was a more stylized look. And these renderers, like Redshift or whatever, are designed to give you photorealistic results. They're meant to act like light actually behaves. And when you have to do something else with it, between that and then the last film that I worked on was called Nimona, which was a much more stylized look. That's a totally different thing. And the look of films is now moving more towards what the motion graphics community has done for a long time, and recognizing that aesthetic shift too.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw, I think it was like either a UPS or FedEx commercial, but it was exactly in the style of like the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Spider-Verse. And it's a commercial, right? But it's on the quality of of what you would have done at Blue Sky or what people were doing at Pixar. Like I see Buck doing commercials or the Mill doing commercials, and it's like on a Pixar level. And they're not as massive as a Pixar is. So it is kind of crazy. And I love that you pointed out the fact that like, I feel like so many motion designers, so many 3D artists, they don't give themselves enough credit for what they do. Again, like I just told you, I was like, I look at stuff at Pixar and I'm like, I suck compared to that. Like, what do I know? But it's like, especially if you're like a character, like I have so many friends that are so talented at like, character design and animation. And it's like, even to do like a character, it's like, well, first you have to design the character. Then two, you have to learn how to like set up a rig for it, which is also this like totally complex kind of thing, technical skill that like I barely grasp. And then on top of that, you have to like learn how to like animate, and animating a character is way more complex than like animating like an inanimate object or just a sphere or something like that. So it's like all of these incredible skills that one single person has when, like you just mentioned at Blue Sky, it's like you maybe have one person that's in charge of just like setting up a rig for a finger.
A rigged character, like to get the rig done, it would take like 6 months. Like it was for anyone, hero characters. Like it's a big process. And again, it's like, yeah, these are all unique skill sets. Like I couldn't rig my way out of I can't rig. Like I don't let them. I mean, I'd have to like start from square one. It's been so long since I've done it that it's a skill set that's unique. And again, in the way that the world is changing in 3D, in a lot of ways, motion designers are set up for success in the future of 3D more than 3D artists from entertainment because of the wider skill sets. And because more and more, like I said, more and more companies are getting into 3D. And I think about it in terms of like, and there was the film industry for a long time. And in the film industry, you've got the director, the cinematographer, the gaffer, the camera operator, the best boy, like all these like individual roles to produce a cinematic, but now we know video and moving images are so important to brand identities and commercials and anything else that a company's putting out there. But they're not going to hire a cinematographer and a gaffer and a best boy and a camera operator. They're going to hire somebody to do video. And they're going to hire that's the path that we're on for 3D. Like companies aren't going to be hiring a lighting artist. They're not going to be hiring a strict animator. They're going to need people who can produce 3D content in a way that's more diverse. So the wider skill set of a motion graphics artist is a good position to be in the year 2025.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, like, you had this transition, and I think we even talked when we met for the first time at the meetup in LA, the safe space at Laundry Studios. Shout out to that meetup. If you're in LA, definitely go check it out. But you were saying how you thought that like motion designers were kind of in a better position if they ever got laid off than someone like yourself, who like you had this very niche skill, and like it's much harder to take that leap to like, working as a 3D motion designer at Apple or a product. Like you're probably not just lighting a product if you're a motion designer at Apple. Like you're modeling, you're lighting, you're texturing, you're doing everything. So I think that's one thing where it's like, the more I talk to artists, the more I have to remind them to like have perspective and to appreciate what they already know and the skills they've already learned, and have that fuel whatever their next wins are. If they have to learn something like Substance, or if they have to learn ZBrush or a Blender or Cinema 4D, it's like, well, what have you already learned? Like After Effects, Photoshop, Illustrator, like you've already learned all these things and you're great at it. Why can't you parlay that into more things? So I love that you kind of like, kind of pumped up our egos a little bit as motion designers to have a appreciation for what we do. Cause we're in this little bubble where everyone else also knows the same thing as you do. And I'm sure you probably felt like that in the bubble at Blue Sky, where it's like I'm a badass lighter, but like everyone else is. So like, holy crap.
For everybody else in every cube in my row, they're all the best. Right. And it's like,
absolutely.
You forget how unique your skill set is in the outside world. Like there's not that many people that know how to use After Effects. Like, and it's hard. Like you feel like, if you've gotten to that point, especially if you're, and I know you all have the Blender course coming out, which is awesome. Like if you can learn Blender, dude, like your next step is like building rocket ships and stuff. Like that is so complex outside of what a normal day-to-day, what most other people deal with in terms of a level of complexity in a creative process. So there's not anything that you can't tackle. And it's one of my frustration points with job listings and things is when they're like, oh no, you have to know X software. And it's like, dude, I can learn X software and just give me a week. Like what you want when you're hiring somebody is like, do they have the skill? Do they have the creative eye? Do they have a established workflow that leads to repetitive success? Like, are they able to gather reference and go through the steps of a creative process? So that's always been one for me. It's like, yeah, just software comes and goes. Again, when you're older, you realize that software comes and goes. It comes in and out of fashion. Like, I remember when Metro Ray was the thing everyone had to learn. Then it was V-Ray, and then it was Redshift, and then it was this, and it was that. And like, there's just software comes and goes. And as a person who works for a software company, I can tell you that software helps, but it's not the thing that makes you special. You are special because of the creative craft that you have inside your head. And that's the thing that we saw that we didn't see students doing. And you were talking about like, hey, lighting it's all just making good looking images. It's understanding color composition. It's understanding light values over dark values to get an eye somewhere. It's all color theory to elicit a certain emotion at a certain point. It's all, leading the eye this way, but having a surprising thing happen over here. It's all that stuff. And it's base foundational art that's been around for centuries that we're just another part of that process.
Right. And I like how you called out the students that they're like, oh yeah, my lighting's not that great, but just wait, I'm going to learn mental ray or whatever. And you're like, no, that's not it. It's garbage in, garbage out, no matter what you're using. So yeah, it's all about the artist, not about the tool.
That was one of the things when I went to cause it was like, oh man, I'm just using Maya in school. But once I get to the big leagues, the software they're going to have is going to be sick. And then I got there and it was worse. It's worse. It's like, because it was proprietary, they could own everything. It was more specific to that pipeline, but there was no GUI. Like there was no like positioning lights in 3D space. It was all like these text documents that you would control. Like we'd have to type in the RGB values of each light to be a certain color. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but it was like the rendering quality was good, but only because the skill of the artists was so high. It's like, insert great artist here. Like great painters aren't great because their paintbrushes are really good. Like their craft is really strong. It's the same thing with 3D artists or motion designers. It's like your craft is what you can do. It's like there's an old John Lennon quote. I'm going to butcher this, but it's like, give me a tuba and I can give you a song. It's like, I'm a musician. I'm not a guitar player. Like you're an artist. You're not an After Effects, user.
Right. And I feel like in the age of AI, that's even more prominent because it's like with photography, right? Like you probably experienced it where people were freaking out because everyone's got a very cheap, very high quality camera in their phone. And now everyone can take a photo, but that doesn't mean, and I think you actually, in one of the newsletters, I think it was written that it was like, just because everyone has a phone in their pocket doesn't make every single person a photographer. There's not that kind of correlation that should be made there.
All that's done is and digital photography is the great example of this, is that there's just going to be like, think of creativity on a bell curve. There's the lower end, there's the stuff that gets produced that's kind of in the middle. What you do as a professional creative artist is like the top 5% of the bell curve, right? And that's where professional photographers live. There's still as many professional photographers today as there was 30 years ago, maybe even more, because they're making the top quality images. What happens, whether it's AI or digital photography, is that middle balloons up. We have so many more photographs now on just like Instagram. It's like every kid, like I have like one picture of my grandfather, right? Like there's like one that exists that I know of. And I take pictures of my kids every single day. I've got gigabytes of albums of them. And so it's like, but it's just because you have more of something doesn't mean you have better of it. It's like that middle balloons up. And the same thing's going to happen with AI. There's just going to be more images, but professional imagery is about distinguishing yourself from what's out, like the average image that's out there, for something that's eye-catching. Because all AI is doing is producing I mean, when I say I mean the ones that are like the text input to final image thing. That's just swelling the middle. Like it's just going to create more of stuff. It's not going to create anything better. And it's because, but you as the creative in your craft can utilize some of the things that AI is doing into your workflow to produce high-end imagery that separates from the masses and allows the content to stand out on its unique qualities.
I hope you're enjoying this podcast with Michael so far, but since we're talking so much about 3D, if you're looking to level up your skills and finally learn 3D or push your existing 3D skills further, School of Motion's got you covered. We offer a variety of 3D courses, whether you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, from Cinema 4D or Blender to Unreal Engine. We have courses that'll help you master all the software and techniques you need to know to create awesome visuals and images. Head on over to schoolofmotion.com to check them out. And who knows, maybe a little substance course is in the works. Stay tuned. All right, back to the interview. Now, I kind of want to talk about, because one of the big things that you do is you talk to other companies, not individuals. Like I know some Adobe evangelists and they mostly talk to artists, individual artists, but you actually talk to other businesses. And when we had an interesting conversation and you mentioned about how you've gotten a lot of insights from being able to talk to all these companies and some companies where you're like, I'm shocked they're using 3D. So I kind of want to touch on that and like what kind of stories you have and about where 3D is being used and like what kind of surprised you from that?
Yeah. So one of the, I tell this story, but one of the earliest, I guess, failures or missteps that I took when I first started to join Adobe, because again, my career in 3D is, and I think motion designers can relate to this. It's like your goal is to make the most visually stunning imagery that you can at any point. Like just, I don't care. Like Jasmine and I would just like, we'd say, because we sat next to each other. It was like, I don't care what you have to do. Just make it look good. Does it look good? I don't care. Like nobody asks how, just make it look good. And so I'm talking to a fashion design, apparel company that does fashion design. And they showed me this render of a shirt, like a plaid shirt in a very common fashion design software. They have Clo and Browseware. And it was like in one of those softwares. And I saw that and my arrogant part of my brain was like, dude, I can make it look better than that. So I got the model, I got a similar flannel material. I put it on there and Substance. I lit it up. I made it look like really good and photorealistic. And all of a sudden I showed it to him and I was like, I'm going to knock their socks off. My boss is going to be in this meeting. It's going to be awesome. And I showed it and they're like, wow, that looks great. Well, what size is that shirt? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, well, then how do you know if that plaid pattern is the right scale for that shirt? And I was just like, I think I even said it. I was like, I don't know. I just kind of like eyeballed it, I guess. And they're like, that's cool. And it looks better than what we produce. But like, we're using these as validation for creating an actual shirt. And like, that's when it clicked with me. So like a fashion design company, the value of using 3D for them is, I mean, you can use it in the marketing images and some do, but a higher value for them is that they go through a process of prototyping where it's like, traditionally it was like you make a 2D concept of your clothing. Like, you get some images, you design them in Illustrator or whatever. Then you send that to a manufacturer. They will produce a prototype, send it back to the facility that designed it for review. And then you give notes on it. You do it again and again and again. That process is slow, it's expensive, and it's difficult. And we know that at some point you're going to need to see a physical prototype. But if you can eliminate a couple of the early stages by showing it in 3D, and I'm not saying like total photoreal rendering 3D, like a visualization of what it's going to look like. And so you can give some notes. That's a bridge between the 2D design and a prototype. So much time gets saved, so much energy gets saved. And like, that's what I'm seeing. So a lot of companies, whether they're product vision, like they make a product, they make a car, they make a bottle of lotion, they make cologne, like whatever thing that gets made, they want to be able to verify the designs early in the process, so that when it comes to prototyping it, they don't have to deal with the shipping, the waste. And by the way, that's another thing in the fashion thing. Like, you don't just make enough fabric for this one thing. Like sometimes you have to manufacture a whole type of fabric for that prototype, and it's hugely wasteful. And you can, like, just shipping costs alone, like they can save. I mean, I just shipped something to my mother-in-law in Vancouver, and it costs like $70 for this little package. I was like, dude. And if you think about that from like, they will literally save millions and millions of dollars. And that's just on that side of it. And then the thing that I talk to companies about is like, okay, so once you have this thing validated, you could then take that 3D object and then turn it into your marketing images too, because you already have the 3D information there, and you can do that at a higher level, which is something that takes some convincing, but they'll get that. You know, some companies are doing it now. Other things too, like if you look at a company like Amazon, right? Amazon brings in so many products. They have to make so many images for it. They have to like da. And one of the things that happens is Amazon has totally normalized the idea of like free returns. You buy something, you don't like it, you send it back. You go on Zappos, you order 10 pairs of shoes, you pick the one you like, you send the other 9 back. It's free returns. Not to the company. Company spends a lot of money on returns. So what they've discovered too is that if you can create if you can create more images of a product that are more color representative of the product, and can also like, especially if it's like a dresser, a shelf, a bed, and you can like AR put it in your space, the likelihood of you returning that product goes way down and saves them money. What I'm trying to get at here with companies, like why do they use 3D? They don't use it because it's cool. They don't use it because it's fun. They don't use it for the reasons that you and I got into it because it looks rad. They use it because it saves them money. And like it can ultimately help them reach financial goals at the end of the day. So that's the biggest one that I've seen from it, is that there's a couple sides of 3D is bigger than I thought it was, in that it's not just about making good visuals. It's about validating ideas and doing and bringing value to companies. So like that's the kind of stuff that I'm like pouring around going like, whoa, look at all this stuff. And like, if you think that creating stuff for motion designers quick, just imagine how many products a Walmart, a Target, an Amazon, a Wayfair, like any of these companies that have to produce so much, like make so much, like they need to figure out ways of doing this bigger, better, faster than they ever have before.
Yeah, I think that's a great parlay to one of the newsletters that you just came out with, I think earlier this week. You put out so many. I don't know how you do it, but one of the newsletters was kind of like on this subject where you're traveling to all these different companies and you're trying to sell how 3D can kind of help them. And you also mentioned how, as a 3D artist, as any type of artist, like you also have to think of yourself as a business. And I just had a call with a freelancer that she had to get laid off from her contract job, and she had like a year cool down period where she had to figure out what to do. And it was one of these things where she was like, I hate selling myself. I hate marketing myself, talking about myself. I was like, well, tough. Like you have to consider yourself as your own business. And if you don't talk about what your business can do, then like you're not going to get any money. And so it was kind of like this light bulb went off in her head, but I'd like you to talk on like what you learned through like your kind of exercise that you do with talking with these companies. And I want you to talk about how you kind of think that should kind of be adopted by a 3D artist, where they should be, or any type of artist, where they should really treat themselves as a business and pitching to these companies. Because sometimes you can go direct to clients, right? Direct to companies and pitch them like, hey, I have these skills. Help me help you.
That's a great question. And by the way, I'll hype up one of the podcasts in the past with Connor Henkel, who I love that dude. He you can listen to it. He does motion graphics for sports venues. I actually brought him into my 3D artist community because I wanted to talk to him more. And like I definitely poached a couple guests that you've had on this podcast.
It's okay
for my own purposes. It's great. But yeah, definitely go back and check out that one. He does a thing where he productizes his offering, right? So for freelancing in the 3D world, in my head, when I lived in New York, was, there's a handful of companies. You go to each one, like, they'll have a job. You go to them, you work there for 3 months, and then based on your reputation and the connections you make there, everyone kind of moves to this other company. It's like the mill and frame store and blah, blah, blah. And you kind of move around a little bit. But ultimately, you were still at the whim of the company to hire you in to do whatever thing that they wanted to do. What Connor, and there's a bunch of other people. I wrote a newsletter. By the way, I like having the newsletter because now I have receipts, and you're like, I read in your newsletter. I was like, oh my God, what did I say? There's a lot of artists out there who are now productizing their 3D offering. There's, Connor's the best at doing sports arena motion graphics on multiple screens. There are artists. I think his name's Patrick 4D on Instagram, who does just food. His food stuff is insane. It's so good. And these people have like productized their offerings and saying like, I'm the best at what I do. And these big businesses will come to them because they're like, we need that. That's of value. We will pay whatever you're asking to get that done. You don't have to nickel and dime them because these big companies have money. Now, your question about like going to these companies and presenting, it's kind of a multi-step process. So this is the things that I've learned. I'm going to condense what I've learned in the last few years into something short. It's the first step of it is you want to go through like a discovery phase with them. You want to talk to them. You want to hear what their business is. You just want to ask questions. You don't want to sell them anything out of the gate. You want to like truly understand it. And the things that you want to listen to are like how they're doing it now, but listen to the way they say some stuff. Like this is something that I learned is like, there's a way of where somebody's talking and you're like, yeah, and then we bring this into Cinema 4D, but like, dude, every time we have to make glass, we have to do this. The second their voice changes to that, it's like, that's their pain point. That's the thing you want to solve for them. Anytime somebody like, like this thing is like, it's like you talk to someone about their significant others, and they never do the dishes. Like that's the thing that annoys them. If you like, and this is just good relationship advice too. You didn't expect that out of the School of Motion podcast today, but you do that. You listen, you understand their workflow. Cause again, this goes back to a lot of these companies are oftentimes looking for a faster course and they don't even know that the 3D solutions that you're offering can solve their problems for them because they don't even know. So what you can do is you can listen to the things that they struggle with, listen to things that they're saying. And then you put together a pitch to them. And I'm talking like from a freelancer standpoint where you demonstrate that your solution can provide the solutions to the things that they value. So if it's a small company, 9 times out of 10, they value doing things for less. They want to see a return on the investment. They want to see that like the money that they put into you gets them the money back. And they also want to see that it's scalable, that it's not just like the first step of doing something, that by doing this, you actually build yourself for future success. So by building the 3D assets for this thing, you're then able to do it again the second time much cheaper. You're able to put in an AR experience or like whatever their next thing is. And then the other but like for bigger companies, like really like pay attention to what people value about it, because sometimes like what they value isn't necessarily saving money. Maybe it's just getting to market faster. Maybe it's just, getting into some certain thing, or like, because they're at a big company and they're working as like, middle management, and the things that they're being evaluated on may not necessarily be the bottom line, but it may be like more of a foothold in this industry. But just listen to what people are saying. Understand that your job isn't to make cool images. That's what you do, but your job is to provide value to them and to help them accomplish the goals in whatever way that you can. Like when I hire people to work with, like one of the things that I look for is, I have some questions that I ask and things that I do. And they basically like, I also say this, it's anyone who applies for a job for me, I'll probably do this with you. I give you like a brief of like, hey, let's run through a mock demo of whatever product you feel comfortable with. Like I actually don't care if it's substance or not, and like, I'm this customer, this is what I'm struggling with, show me this. And if they're like, hey, look at this cool stuff that I can make, and it's like all about their process, then it's like, it's kind of an off-putting thing. But when they can show empathy and say like, I heard you say that you're struggling with, let me show you how we can fix that. And lots of times it's solving the problem that they told you about. But the more impactful thing is when you can read between the lines and understand a solution to their problem that they don't even realize. Like that's when you can really wow people. It's like, that in your process, you talk again, like the shipping cost is like a big one in this. In your process, you talked about how you how you spent $6 million last year, shipping these products overseas. Like, you can cut that down by like 2/3. And then it's like, all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? Because they don't think about that part of the process. So it starts with a full understanding of what it is that you do, talk to the companies. And then Connor has this great thing that I learned from him too about, when you're laying out what you're offering them, it's like there's a 3-tiered approach to your pricing system. It's like, the thing that you expect, that's like, this is the middle offering that you asked for. We can give you this, but if price is your problem, we'll give you the discounted offer here, down below, which has less things. And then we also have the stretch goal of just like, I know you asked for this, but I can also do this. And that's, 40% more value. And the reason why you do that, it's like a psychological thing. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you order a bottle of wine, or like I worked in restaurants for like 10 years through undergrad, grad school to like pay for that stuff. And nobody ever orders the most expensive scotch on the menu or whatever. It's just there. So you go, I'm not going to get that, but I'll get this one. You get the second or third tier price. So it's called anchor pricing. It's a fun little concept. So hopefully that answered your question, but that's kind of my approach, is that you have to, because you have to establish trust with companies. You have to speak their language. You have to, you can't come in guns blazing, talking about the thing that's interesting to you and showing them the thing that you can do that's the coolest. Because again, companies don't value cool. They value reaching their goals. And of course everyone likes the good visuals, and that's what you bring to the table, and that's how you can deliver on it. But like you have to speak to what they need to accomplish.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Connor, and yeah, Coliseum is the website if you're kind of looking about the 3-tier and like how he kind of lays everything out. And I think Patrick 4D is also another great example of artists that what they're doing isn't necessarily like, I feel like when most artists post, like I know I do this all the time, I'm more like trying to get like other artists and people in the community be like, oh, hey, that's cool. Or like, check out this cool thing. Like, I feel like not a lot of us are actually in the same mindset of like, actually, we should be posting on Instagram or wherever we're posting to talk to someone that's going to hire us, not our colleagues, because our colleagues are just going to hit the like button and throw some fire emojis. But we should really be talking to what we can provide, what value we can provide to people that are going to give us money. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. Also, like, use your platform to help people. Like that's been, I don't care. I spent way too much time like caring about the number of likes and followers and that kind of thing. I just don't care anymore. And it's like, if you can, here's a funny one. If you want LinkedIn to show you jobs, this is something I found this out by mistake. If you want LinkedIn to show you jobs, share jobs, talk about jobs in your posts, right? Because the algorithm's like, this guy cares about jobs. I constantly am looking for jobs for people for the newsletter. I'm not looking for work. I'm very happy with my job. I'm not actively looking, but like, when you do that, the algorithm feeds you job information. So now I can share with more people. And so it's like, whatever thing that you want, share the thing that you want. If you want to talk about the value of what you bring to the table, start talking about it. And then you'll get fed because these algorithms will feed you the thing that you're putting out there. So it's like, and this is the other part of it that I try to tell people about too, is like, use your social media. Like you can use it to either learn something new or there's a Reddit for LinkedIn lunatics. It's very funny for me. It's like over exaggerated, like hustle culture nonsense. But every time I look at them, I think like, why do you follow that person? Just block them. Just get them out, right. Like get them out of the way. Like the same thing with whatever Blue Sky or whatever Instagram, whatever you're using. If there's somebody posting something that like, it's just not what you want to do, like you can customize those platforms to a point, but you can customize them to be like what you want it to be. Like my LinkedIn is awesome. I love logging into my LinkedIn. It's all just like creative people doing awesome stuff like all the time. It's just like feeds of that. And if anybody gets like political or preachy, it's like, oh, I'll just mute them. And it's great. So you can tailor it to the things that you're interested in. And yeah, speak. And if you want, especially if you're thinking to go freelance or you're looking at things like, yeah, speaking to, the value that you can provide is really key. Cause it's like, I think so much of it too, again, is like thinking about putting yourself, what's the content that can give me the most engaging thing? And it's like, yeah, true. But like, just because I think Louis C.K. said this, is like, just cause you get a lot of likes doesn't mean you've done something good.
Right.
Like that. So it's like you put the thing out there that you want out there.
Yeah. I know so many artists that they do great work, but the moment they start complaining about like, oh, Instagram is shadow banning me or, whatever, it just like, it does something to me where I'm like, dude, I thought you just like making this art and like now you're complaining that you don't get these likes. And it's like, it just totally ruins my opinion of that artist. Cause like, oh, that's just what you're here for, is just to be famous and whatever. You're just not like all about just making the art. So I don't know, that kind of thing always kind of throws me off.
That's one of the reasons why I created my online community. So I have been looking for this for a long time as a remote artist. Cause again, it's like you can have 100,000 followers on Instagram, but like, it's not a community. It's too big. It's too much noise. It's too like loud. It's too much this. And so I was trying to find it like on Discord, and like Discord communities are very big as well. And like, there's just a lot going on. So I wanted to try and create like a smaller, more intimate thing. And so I researched it for a while, and I like took classes on it and like building communities and that kind of thing. And I tried something, and this is like the weird experimental thing that I'm trying, and it actually works really well. I charge $20 for my community to join. But I don't make a penny. I actually spend a lot more than I put in $100 a month. But the idea is that everything goes to a pool, a community pool, and then we use that for resources. We bought Max on One licenses that can be shared in the community. We've got, and then when I did that, the substance team was like, "Wait, you did what? Like, we're giving you some substance licenses too." So we got some substance licenses, and then, but we have a career coach, creative career coach coming in and talking to the community with that money. Like, it's much more like a co-op thing, because there's like, 30 or 40 paid members in this group. And like, it's just more intimate. It's more connection. And it's like, I post about who we're doing AMAs with, and like, I'll post little things here and there just so people are aware of it, but I don't market it. I don't need it to get that big. And once you get past that of like growing as big as possible, like you can create some true, unique experiences and unique opportunities with things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point, is that like more is not better. Like, I feel like, people say like, oh, I have this many friends on Facebook, but it's like, but how many of those people are actually your friends? And there was a podcast I was listening to. It was all about how we're like in this loneliness epidemic, but like people have all these followers and stuff, and they have all these interactions, but they're still like empty inside. And it's because they're not true connections. So I think that's a great point of like, I don't know if you've heard of it, but Camp MoGraph is one of those events where I feel like there's so many tight knit relationships that come out of that like small event that, you're there for 4 or 5 nights, all bunking out of camp. And like, I know so many like just lifelong friendships and business connections and stuff that have come from that. So yeah, we'll definitely shout out. I'm glad you're mentioning your a 3D artist group, and because I think what you're doing there is super great.
That the event that we met at for the first time, like, I don't live in LA, I live in the Bay Area. I saw this event. It was like, you were speaking at it, Winbush was at it, PJ was there, and I was like, dude, I'm in. Like, and so it's a cheap flight down from the Bay Area. So I came down from the Bay, like went to the event, and it's like, but it was with a conscious decision that like, these people that I know online, I want to meet them. Like, I want to talk to them. I want to like have a drink with them or whatever. Like, because otherwise, I mean, I have followers on all the platforms. I Zoom with people all day. I'll do all that stuff. Like, but most of my life is just in my house. And most of the people that I deal with are a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old who are insane. Like, it's like, you have to, especially in this time period, you have to make a conscious effort to be in a more communal space. And like, you have to like reach out for in-person events. You have to like, and again, it's hard and I get it, but you have to make that conscious effort to do it.
I always recommend people go to NAB School of Motion. We put on this big MoGraph meetup the Sunday before or during the show. Highly recommend anyone come out. It's like free food, free drinks. So if you're trying to plug in, definitely come out. And I think, Michael, what you said, like having a purpose and an intent to, okay, I'll go to NAB, but what for? Am I just going to show up and hope that something happens? Or I'm going to show up and be like, I want to learn substance. I'm going to go over to the substance booth. I'm going to find Mike, or I'm going to find Wes, and, go hang out and like ask specific questions. And you'll be surprised how friendly and how just generous and just amazing the community is. Even, top of the top, like your Andrew Kramers or your Nick Campbells and stuff. They're some of the nicest, sweetest. Joey, like they're the nicest, sweetest people in the world. So,
oh my gosh, like that changed with me. So I did a lighting book with Jasmine years ago. The publisher reached out to us after with the school, and they're like, "Hey, we can do a lighting book." And they gave us an imaging budget, and it was like, and we were like, "Oh, cool, we've got budget. We're gonna let's talk to these major film companies. We'll put some really cool images from animated films. And I remember like talking to 20th Century Fox, and they were like, okay, one image from like a film that I worked on was like $2,000 for this book. And I was like, interesting. That's too much. Like, I was like, is there an employee discount? They're like, no. Anyway, so so we started reaching out to, so I was like, you know what, we're gonna go, we'll get some of those, but I'll start reaching out to people who are making animated shorts. I'll see if they're willing to share it. And like 100% of people that we reached out to were like, absolutely. Like, sure. And I made connections with people. It's great. And that's when I realized like, oh man, just reach out to people. And that's been my goal for the last few years. It's just like, and again, like I listened to Connor Henkel on the School of Motion podcast. I was like, this guy is dope. And so I went on LinkedIn and I found him and I sent him a message like, dude, I just listened to your podcast. You are dope. I would love to talk to you sometime. Like and on this, you know, it's like if you like the words I'm saying and you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, do it. Like I reach out to people. Like I do this because I love it. Like I truly, it inspires me every day. I don't, you ask me like, how do I write the newsletter? It's because I think about this stuff all the time. And I actually have like a backlog of things. Also, I use some AI to help me edit it because my writing skills aren't the best all the time.
Sure.
But I think about this and I enjoy this stuff. And so many creatives out there do it because this is, I'd probably be doing this stuff if I didn't, I mean, the first time that I got like a paycheck, I was just like blown away that somebody pays me to do this. I'm like, dude, I was happy when I first got to an office and they let me like take pens and stuff. Like I was like, dude, I can get Post-it notes for free. This is crazy. So yeah, yeah, definitely, get out of your own way and put yourself out there and talk to people because people want to connect.
Yeah. Speaking about, Substance, and we haven't even talked. People are probably like, tell us some Adobe stuff here, man. Like, so let's maybe start out by like, if there's like people that use Adobe products, but they're not in the 3D world, or maybe they are, maybe they're just After Effects. Can you maybe talk a little bit about like what Substance is and kind of how it plugs into, so I know there's a lot of stuff popping into After Effects that I think maybe people don't quite realize that that's actually part of the Substance kind of team integration, and then like how it integrates with like, tools like Cinema 4D and Blender.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm a great representative of the product. It's been in like an hour and I haven't brought it up yet.
I know, right?
Substance is, so the history of Substance is, it was a company founded by a brilliant guy named Sébastien Deguy in France. And it was started with the idea of helping gaming companies kind of optimize and clean up their material creation process, right? So, making a 3D model look a certain way, making something look like glass or wood or fabric or whatever. Because anyone who's tried to do it inside of Cinema 4D or inside of, Blender, Unreal, whatever your tool of choice is, it's tricky. Like it's difficult. The tools aren't really set up for it. Like those tools are generally meant to do everything, like every part of the 3D process. And that's where they were birthed from to do that. And as 3Ds got more and more complex with more and more nuance, you start to see other software break out of it. Things like ZBrush just for modeling and like that kind of thing. So Substance took the approach of like just being the software, just being the solution for the material creation process. And Substance is actually like a couple different pieces. There's like 5 different pieces of software that are really designed around this idea that would start with this idea of like creating materials for this pipeline. The biggest one, and you can find the other ones, but the biggest one is Substance Painter. This is like the A1. This one was the groundbreaking one for me. Like this is, instead of painting flat 2D maps in Photoshop and trying to get them to translate onto my 3D object, I can just open a 3D model in a software and paint directly on it and add detail to it and add nuance and layer it the same way that I did in Photoshop, and like really approach texturing a 3D object in an intuitive Photoshoppy way. And that's dope. And that's like the biggest product and the thing that people generally know Substance for. There's also like a massive asset library. There's a team in France who are just churning out materials and models and stuff for the platform, which is hugely beneficial for people getting into 3D. And so that was all done and brought up like prior to joining Adobe. And Adobe was like, and the reason why Adobe invested was they are started noticing this trend of more and more companies moving towards 3D, right? Again, for design, for output, like Adobe is, they are groundbreaking in what marketers and creative professionals are doing with their pipelines. They have a good pulse on what that is, and they see it moving towards 3D. And so they want to get in the game. And again, if you've ever met Sebastian Diggy, like you'll understand why they invested in that company. He's a brilliant dude, as all my other French bosses are. Like they're great. They're all like really smart, brilliant dudes.
Magnifique.
Yeah, magnifique. I never say anything French around them because it is just embarrassing.
You don't want to butcher yourself. Like
my Midwestern French is. Anyway, so then it was like, okay, how does like 3D work in the Adobe ecosystem that already exists? And what we're kind of understanding in the way it's kind of goes, like there are 3D pros who are going to create 3D assets, right? They're going to be the ones that build the models and texture them and do all that. And we've got tools like Substance Painter that helps them craft these amazing things. But what we're seeing from the creative side is that there's an emerging industry of people who want to utilize 3D assets in Photoshop, in Illustrator, in After Effects, in these other tools. So what we're doing is we're building bridges between them. So you can take a 3D model, paint it, make it look like however you want. And if you go to my YouTube, I've got full tutorials on how to use Substance Painter. And then you can send it directly from Substance Painter into After Effects. So a fully textured 3D model is now available to you in After Effects that you can animate and twirl and make move however you want. And there's also something now called Substance Viewer, which is in beta, which allows you to tie 3D models directly into Photoshop and hopefully soon Illustrator as well, where you can take a 3D model into your Photoshop file and you're like, oh, actually, I want to change the angle of it. I want to change the lighting of it. You click a button and it opens in Substance Viewer, and then you can adjust all that stuff too. So it's like we're understanding that the lines between 2D and 3D are merging. There's also something really, really cool called Project Neo, which is kind of a WOMP spliney thing that ties directly into Illustrator. And the difference is that it actually outputs vector data. Like you can build something in 3D on a web interface, click a button, and it just like brings vector data back into Illustrator. It's very, very cool. So Substance at Adobe is a combination of these high-end 3D tools for 3D professionals, and then also developing simplified like workflows for people who want to utilize 3D assets in their 2D workflow. So it's because the gap is just going to get narrower and narrower between those two things. Because again, companies don't care. They don't care if you make it in 3D. They don't care if you make it in 2D. They just want to be able to make better images faster. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point too, is, these days people are worried about which software they need to learn or what render or whatever. And it's like most of the time the client does not care if you're using Blender or Cinema 4D. It's just what tool is going to get the job done easier for you, or, and I love that you brought up Project Neo. I didn't even know until yesterday when I was doing a little bit of research to prepare for this conversation about like all this stuff. Like I'm at the Adobe labs.adobe.com. And I played a little bit with Project Neo, but I had no idea about the whole spitting out vectors to Illustrator. And like, I mean, if you haven't checked out Project Neo, like, and you're afraid of 3D modeling, like it's kind of like playing with Play-Doh and just putting shapes together and blending them together. Like I highly recommend people check it out because it's pretty incredible. And it's still in like a beta. So it's not even, it's like it's fully fleshed form.
It's still a babe. And it's also like, so that was one of the things that blew me away that, like when I joined the Substance team at Adobe, is like how often people think, or like social media will be like, oh, Adobe's going to buy this product and kill it. And you're like, dude, you have no idea how brilliant the people are and like how much like has been developed in the short time that it's been a part of this thing, and just watching the speed that the stuff is coming out. It's really, I work at the company. I have trouble keeping up with the releases of stuff. And it's just like, it's kind of nuts. And we've at Substance taken the Adobe approach to AI, which is again, like this text to final output is like a cool gimmick that demonstrates what it's capable of, but that's not the focus. It's like AI for creative workflows and speeding them up and making them easier and, making commercially viable. And I also agree that like Adobe's taking the approach of opening up their AI capabilities. So if you want to like the long-term roadmap that, it's like if you want to plug in Sora or, Midjourney or whatever else like into your pipeline, like go for it. Like, it's not going to be a closed ecosystem of generation that way.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, I feel like we do our Motion Mondays every week, and I feel like every single week there's some kind of news coming from Adobe. This week it was the Adobe came out with their new video model and a Firefly mobile app, and it just looks pretty crazy. And that's one of the things that like, and you mentioned this a lot about how you think it's very important to that artists actually embrace AI. And you on your YouTube page, you show some pretty crazy stuff like the structure reference tool. And you're showing ways in which I think the big thing that people get hung up on is like, I don't want AI to replace what I do, what I enjoy doing. And I feel like that's where Adobe, I feel like we can appreciate they're not necessarily replacing anyone's job per se. They're just trying to give us the tools with a great UI, with a UI that we can actually make sense of. That's not just, pulling the slot machine, typing in words and stuff like that, but it's actually trying to integrate in the tools that we already use. Like I use generative expand all the time just to like, oh, I rendered this out as square, but now I can do the HD and whatever. I don't have to re-render or whatever. And I know a lot of people that use stuff like Midjourney and stuff for concepting. So it's like their Pinterest. And I don't want to get in like Pinterest is turning into a bunch of like AI slop anymore. But yeah, I'd like you to kind of talk about like you seem super hyped on AI, and I've seen tutorials like I mentioned before, the structure reference. What kind of tools are you super excited about that 3D artists should kind of pay attention to as we dive deeper into 2025?
The biggest one that I see is that, and again, the structure reference stuff that I've seen is one of the first times I'm really seeing like fully useful, like really, really impactful AI benefits in 3D that step up, that allow you to work faster. So what this is when I got introduced to text prompting stuff, I was like, oh, this is cool. But if you ever try to like actually make something using it, it's a very frustrating process for a couple reasons. One, it's like very difficult to control it or say the specific thing that you want. Also, it's like a visual person. Like I don't communicate. Like I struggle with like finding the right words to text prompt something. Also, it just drove me nuts that I couldn't control the camera angle, the position, the composition, that kind of stuff. What you can do with 3D inside of Stager and in the Substance stuff with the Firefly AI is you can take 3D models, position them around the scene, take your camera, position the camera where you want, set the aspect ratio, set everything the way you want it. And then you can be like, okay, keep this 3D model. Like let's say it's your hero element. Like, let's say it's the thing that you worked on, like the thing you want to highlight. But you want to build a world around it and you want that to be an AI generated image. You can build props and then tell those props, like, it's called a guide object. You're like, you're a guide object, you're a guide object, you're a guide object, go. And now you can, those guide objects can be the thing that gets replaced with an AI image. So there's also like a text to 3D model. So I showed this example on my on my YouTube channel, like thing. But basically, I was doing this where you're basically like, okay, imagine you're a shoe company and you want to, you got a shoe and you're like, okay, cool. I want to put this. It's a trail running shoe. I'm going to put this on a mountain and blah blah blah. Like, do I really want to like go up on a mountain? No. Do I really want to find a stock image of a mountain? Like, I'm kind of worried that another company is going to use that same stock image and it's just going to look kind of lame. Because that's another thing. Like, try and find a stock image that you can go down that rabbit hole for like hours and never really find the one you're thinking of. But I can lay out I can download a model of a mountain from the Substance Asset Library. I can grab something from this website. I can do this. I can text prompt a rock that is just right underneath the shoe, so I can put the shoe on it and then make Firefly generate all that stuff around it. And when I saw that, I was like, that's what I want. I want to control what I want to control. I want AI to take care of the rest, but I want to guide it into what that kind of looks like. I still want to have control over the composition. I still want to have control over these things. There's also like a color match slider. So if you're like, I want this specific color composition, you can match the colors of what you're doing a little bit better. And I was like, that's what I'm excited about. Like, so using, and you could kind of only do this in 3D because of the spatial relationships and things. You can lay out a scene with 3D objects that guide a generative AI image creation. And once you have that, you're like, once you do it, you're like, dude, come on. And like, it's fun to like mess with stuff. Like you take a, it's just a fun way to work. It's just a very fast, very fluid way. And it's really powerful for brands who are like, I want to put because if you're, I'm trying not to use like specific company names, but like if you're company, if you, again, like let's go back to a footwear company. They don't want an AI generated shoe. Like that's not what they want. They want their product. They designed it. They has to look and feel and be a certain way. But they're like, we want this lifestyle brand around it, right? And then you can kind of build that, and then that's the AI stuff. Like the secondary stuff that you care a little bit less about. It's the same stuff that you would get like if you're an Unreal user. They're like, yeah, but like you would use Megascans for. It's just like you don't care what the plant looks like. You just kind of care that there's a plant there. So that's the biggest thing that I'm most excited about.
Right. And I think, a lot of artists get very anxious because of AI, but it's one of those things where it's like, you're starting to see how it becomes a not this random thing that generates everything, because, no company like Honda that made their AI ad, like they didn't just do the output. They needed a team of 3D artists and compositors and stuff. Like they still needed artists with really awesome technical skills, awesome creative skills, artistic skills. And so, I talked to some artists and they're just like, what should I even learn? Because, there's AI and da-da-da. And it's like, well, you still need to know all the same stuff. I mean, maybe we'll come to a day where you don't have to know how to model things precisely because maybe things are getting generated, but you'll still need to like, what do I do with this model? Like I still need to compose a shot. I still need to make a pretty image. And like you said, Midjourney is not going to make a Nike shoe for me. Like it's not going to be the right one. So I have to use some asset. I need to know how to light it right. I need to know how to composite it right. And you still need to, I mean, even with like you mentioned before, even with the prompts, like you still have to know like what a wide angle shot is, what a dolly is, like what are all these cinematography terms that you should know anyways as a 3D artist. I know that's not the case for a lot of 3D artists. Like, when I first got into 3D, I didn't pay attention to that, but it's like, once you get into it, you realize like, if I know all this stuff that has been the constant throughout, how long has film been around for? How long has, still images been around for? Like that's all stuff is never going to get replaced. It's always going to be relevant. It's always going to be important.
The further we get out into technology, the more the foundational skills matter. Like the more the understanding composition, understanding layout, understanding visual storytelling, like just understanding what that looks like, because all we're doing is increasing the rate that we can make an image. And this was even true like when I was teaching photography classes like 20 years ago. Like being like even when you're doing film, like you can shoot film pretty quick. And honestly, the good photographers early on weren't the ones who could make the best images. They were the ones that were able to look at the 24 or 36 images on their roll of film, look at that contact sheet and pick out the ones that they're going to progress with, like pick out the ones. And so it's like the same thing with generative AI stuff. Like I can cycle through stuff pretty quickly, but do I have the training? Do I have the eye? Do I have the aesthetic sensibilities to say that's good, that's not good? Like there's going to be more curating in the future, but like all of that is dependent on the quality of your eye and all that stuff.
Yeah. And one thing I always say is like, if everyone has access to everything, like who cares if you can't tell a compelling story or make something visual that can connect with another human being? Like just because if everyone had a red camera, you're going to have a lot of very high quality footage of just garbage composition, right?
So, do you think that like the Pixar movies are good because they could produce images that nobody else like? No, that is true. They produce high quality images, but the story is like, dude, like watch the storyboard of the first couple minutes of the film up. Like I still cry. I'll cry. I would cry.
I hear the music.
Oh, there's so many examples of that. Like Like Flow. I love Flow. I made a joke. I'm a big movie nerd, and a buddy of mine does a movie podcast now, and he was like, "Who do you think best supporting actor for the year?" I was like, "The capybara from Flow." Like, I don't know if it's like 10% of people will get that joke, but like, there's a capybara who's just like a rock solid buddy because it's a movie with no dialogue, with animals just being animal-y, like just doing normal animal stuff, like a little bit different, but like it's 90 minutes. I've watched it twice now, like mesmerized by it, made my kids watch it with me. They loved it. Like you don't need just because you can do this stuff. It's like, doesn't mean that people can harness it faster. And by the way, if you're like anti-AI, awesome. Like do that, like lean into that, like make a story. I'm shocked at how many art creatives that are anti-AI are just like typing that they're anti-AI. Like, don't go make art about it. Like, go express yourself that way. Like, go do your thing, man. Just like tell your story that way in a compelling way, whether you're using it or not. Like but the ability to tell a story visually is not going to go away. It's actually going to become more important because there's just going to be more avenues to do it. And there's going to be, like I said, what companies are looking for, what individuals, what the public is looking for is not more. They're looking for different, better, unique. And like people talk about this idea of like, oh, we're going to make, you're going to be able to like design whatever movie you want based on your likes and your preferences and what actors you blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, do you know how many movies I see that I love that go like The Whale with Brandon Fraser? Do you think I would have come up with that one out of my own? Like, no way. That movie's great. Like there's just so much more to this creative process that we can, that can blow us away with what we don't know. Like that's the creative part of it.
Yeah, when you mentioned like, oh, everyone could just make their own movies or whatever based on their own likes, it's like someone equated it to like everyone having their own fantasy football team, and like no one cares about anyone else's fantasy football team but their own, and they love to talk about it, and no one else cares. It's kind of like that.
And part of this stuff too is a shared experience. Like I'm way into the show Severance right now. Part of that joy is like the other people that I know that are and like talking about it or like. But if I watch, a film that's like specifically geared to my likes and interests, like nobody will. Yeah, exactly. To be a movie about my fantasy football team, nobody cares.
Yeah. I just saw Wild Robot over the past weekend, and it's one of those things where it's like aesthetically it was so cool, and I learned after like it was based off of Miyazaki and very painterly kind of style, and it was one of those things where I was like, this looks beautiful, but one of the things in the back of my head was, I hope this has like an awesome story though. Because I love the visuals. I just hope the story's there. And it was a pretty awesome. But we're going a little long here, and I just have two more questions for you. Because we have a lot of After Effects artists that are probably like, maybe they don't like AI. But one of the things I have noticed, and I don't know if there's any insight, any sneak peek that you can kind of tell us, but like as far as After Effects goes, I believe there's like Roto Brush, and that's like AI powered to some extent, right? But that's something that's like been added a while ago. But it seems like, at least for me, like it seems like all the like there's Firefly stuff touching almost every single app in Adobe's like ecosystem, except for After Effects. What do you think about that?
I just think that motion is harder. Like in at the end of the day, like the idea of whatever you're going to see in Photoshop or Illustrator is going to probably make its way into After Effects. It's just harder. Like doing it over time, doing it over distance. It's like all that stuff will be there. And by the way, it's not like Adobe's been doing this machine learning, generative AI or AI powered things for a while. It's just, it became, and again, this is anyone who works at a big company knows this. Like I don't have like crazy insights into the Adobe process, but what it seems like to me is they've been developing this for a long time. And then all of a sudden, like, ChatGPT and Midjourney and all these things came out and were like these productized versions of it. And Adobe was like, all right, I guess we'll productize what we've already been building anyway. So they like made a website called it Firefly, like made a thing. And so now it's like, but this is just the way that creativity has been going for a while. And it always does it first to 2D, like still images, and then it will go to the moving images. I think all that stuff will be there. It'll just take a little bit more time because of the complexity that motion provides.
Yeah. I think there's been, I know Joey has tested some of these these AIs that supposedly try to make motion-y, graphic-y kind of animations, and they're terrible. Because one of the things that, I think that's why motion designers should take some heart is that it's Adobe struggling to, like, all these companies are really struggling to get this like super smart AI to do what we can do. And again, like, it's hard to put emotion in movement and the follow through, the overlapping and eye trace and all that kind of stuff. Like, those are all it's like, it's easy for, generate extend in Premiere, because how a human walks in an image. And if we need to continue that human to walk in a certain direction, like, it's easy for AI to figure that. But if you have a ball bouncing or some logos or some abstract shapes kind of doing their thing and animating this crazy way, it's very hard for AI to try to guess what's that next thing, and that's something that I feel like that's kind of the human touch that, the animator's hand, the artist's hand is something that, like, it's super hard. So I almost think that's like kind of like a nice kind of thing to think about, that, like, we just kind of wrap it up where we were at the beginning, where so many of us are so anxious about AI and all these apps and all these things. And, like we said before, we shortchange ourselves for what we already know and what we can already do. But I did have one last question for you. And, this is more just like a personal thing. Can you talk to anyone at Adobe that works with Mixamo and tell them, like, please more? Like, it's incredible how many people I talk to that use, like, Mixamo is being used so many places to this day. And it's like, it hasn't been touched in years. And in fact, like, I tell people this, they've actually removed features like that used to do quadrupeds, used to be able to blend animations together in Mixamo. So I'm just trying to put the good vibes out there. If you could nudge someone over there, like, everyone I talk to loves Mixamo. But that's my little soapbox at the end here.
Understood. I'll pass it along. Cause that's the other side of this too, right? Like, and I'm not gonna make any promises, but in all reality, I was blown away when I came into the team at how much people pay attention to the things that are being said in forums, online, time on Twitter. People saying stuff matters because the team really truly cares about this. Like, that's another thing that's a misconception of, oh, Adobe bought a product, they're just gonna, like, no, it's all the same people. It's all the exact same French programmers that made it originally, that have been there for 20 years. Like, this is their baby, man. Like, this is the thing that they built, and they want to hear this stuff and they want to hear it. So for something like Mixamo, it is because, again, as more people get interested in 3D, there's going to be more of a need for simple, easy 3D, right? Like a Mixamo provides. And so there's definitely something there. Yeah, it's definitely something there. And so, by the way, anybody, like, if you want to yell at me about an Adobe thing, like, throw it my way. I will send them internally. By the way, I probably shouldn't say that because now I'm gonna get flooded with stuff. But but seriously, like, we just did it. There was a couple of things that have happened that way, where somebody, like, messaged me something on LinkedIn, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Stager did this? And I was like, that's a great idea. And I sent it to the team, and one or two iterations later, pop, there it is. It's like, these things that, like, big companies, if you get anything out of this, it's like, just reach out to people. Big companies are just made up of regular people too, who care a lot about the thing that they're producing. And if you want something to change, just say something about it. And whether or not they do it, it's up to them. But, like, you have to make your voice heard. So yeah, thank you, EJ, for sending that along. I'll pass it along.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know that, the team cares, and I think it's great that, like, all the betas that they have, that they provide. Like, I know Victoria is always sharing stuff behind the scenes, and for the After Effects team, and it's super cool. I mean, it goes to show that they care and they want feedback, and they show the roadmaps. And not every company kind of does that and kind of gives you a little peek behind the curtain. So yeah, we appreciate that. Mixamo is my personal crusade, where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I love it so much, and it's just like, oh, I wish it was.
Yeah, there's always those that slip away, but yeah.
Well, not for people to send you, hate mail or bug you about stuff, but if you want to plug any of your stuff, because I know we've kind of sprinkled it throughout, but I'd love for you, if people want to follow more about what you're doing, because you got your YouTube and all the other stuff you got going on.
Yeah, I'll plug it up. So The easiest way to reach out to me and connect with me, the place that I post the most is LinkedIn. So Michael Tanzillo is my name. So just follow me on there. My handles everywhere else is just the @Michael Tanzillo. I'm awful at naming things, so everything's just my name. YouTube content is mostly tutorials and for Painter and Stager, and I'm going to explore more AI workflows there. I also am going to use that platform to kind of describe, again, some of these workflows of 3D workflows in different industries that I found. So I'm trying to figure out a way to do that. For my newsletter, I come out with that. I come out with 2 newsletters every week. Wednesday, it's just jobs in 3D outside of entertainment. So I try to post 3 jobs every Wednesday. Every Sunday, I release just a newsletter of like what's been going on in the 3D world. It's just a lot of the stuff that just rattles around in my brain that I put out, and I'm still shocked that people read it. So that's every Sunday. And then and then within that, you'll find links to the 3D artist community. It's a platform on School. Again, if you want to get connected with other 3D artists out there and see what other types of things that people in the fashion industry are working on for 3D or entertainment or product design or product visualization. It's just a wonderful, wonderful group of people that I've now consider more friends than anything else. And so that's all my plugging. Those are all my things.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say thank you so much for all you do. Like I love like all the insights that I get from you. And yeah, the newsletters are great because you do little ones that it's like, what's USD? Like, I feel like there's these terms, like things like that, where it's like, there's these terms that people throw around that people, I think, kind of fake that they understand what the hell it is. But you're like, no, let's sit down. What the hell is this?
What is a, like those are becoming more prominent. Like, what is a Gaussian splat? What is the one that I'm just writing this week, and it'll be out by the time your listeners to hear this podcast. But I'm writing like, what is Omniverse? Like, what is NVIDIA's Omniverse? I've heard about it, and it's like, and I've seen demos of it, and I've taught, and it's just like, okay. It's really an opportunity for me to sit down and get through my imposter syndrome of just like, because again, it's like if you go into a room and people are mentioning stuff, and you're like, oh wow, I don't know what that is. They really know what they're talking about, and then you realize later, like, no, that was all BS. Like they didn't know that was a nonsense term. They were saying silly things. So like, let me actually get into it and figure it out. So yes. What is Gaussian splatting? And, anywhere from that to this is what fashion does with 3D to like, one of my more popular ones is like somebody asked me early on, like, can you have a family as a 3D artist? What's that look like? So I wrote a whole one about like laying out my salaries as a 3D artist over the years and just kind of what that breakdown does. So yeah, try to do a little bit of everything there.
Yeah. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being on that. Like I've been such a huge fan for a while, and it was great to finally meet you in person and hope to catch you at more events in the future. But thank you again for all you do. Like Michael's such a great resource. If you don't follow him, if you're not subscribed, like you're doing yourself a disservice. So yeah, Michael, thanks again for all your time here, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much, Ben. And all the same to you. And I'm a huge fan of you personally and the work that you're putting out. The School of Motion is one of the best places in the world to learn from. So just a huge fan of everything that you all are doing. So yeah, it goes both ways, buddy.
Thank you, man. And that's it for today's episode with Michael Tanzillo. A huge thanks to Michael for sharing his incredible journey and insights with us. I hope you found it as inspiring and eye-opening as I did. It was especially great to hear Michael remind us motion designers just how accomplished we should feel, realizing the breadth of skills that we all have and that we've acquired through the years. And his advice on overcoming imposter syndrome and adopting a stronger business mindset as a freelancer, so good. And if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher, and make sure you leave us a like or a review. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep on creating. Bye, everybody.